Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, held on Monday, December 9th, 2019. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the Deputy Clerk to note our starting time for the minutes is 7 p.m. and I invite all of you in attendance to rise for the playing of O Canada. Today's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after the meeting as an archived video. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate or unacceptable behavior and/or comments. Thank you for your thinking on this matter. This community succeeds and flourishes when its people make their contributions. Those making important contributions include councillors at this table who will listen to and deliberate on the matters on our proposed agenda. I note today that we also have tremendous staff support, as we always have, and certainly want to thank our staff who are providing service and reports to the Council and to our community. I also acknowledge those who have business with or interest in the work of this Council who have come tonight for that purpose or who have joined us online to observe for their interests. I appreciate all of you being here and your service and your efforts. I invite your decorum over the course of the coming meeting. I advise at this time that I have attendance regrets for tonight's meeting from Councillor Duncan. Since our work requires concentration, procedures issued by Council requires all but councillors and specific media to turn off electronic communication devices at this time, and even then to respect focused use for our meeting. Use of cameras or audio devices during or to record this meeting is not permitted. Let us then move to item 2.1 on our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol, at this time I invite any councillors with pecuniary interest, including those who have already declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors, any of you have a pecuniary interest to declare this evening? Seeing no indication of that, then we turn to agenda item 2.2. I have a motion before me for the adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting that reads as follows, that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Can I invite a mover for this? Councillor Andreessen, thank you, and Councillor Richardson is our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That brings us to agenda item number 3, the so-called consent agenda. These items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they require Council's approval. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and individual action may do so. There are 2 items on our consent agenda tonight. Councillors, do any of you have a desire to extract either one or both of these items for further discussion? Seeing no indication of that, I have a resolution for our consideration that reads as follows, that consent items 3.1 to 3.2 be received for information and the minutes of the December 2nd, I think that's 9th, December 2nd, sorry, 2019 regular council meeting be adopted. Can I invite a member for that? Councillor Rothwell and seconded by Councillor Seiler. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this? Seeing no indication of same, let's have the vote. And that is also carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 4 on our agenda. We have included on tonight's agenda a public meeting to consider a zoning bylaw amendment application. To facilitate the public meeting, we must temporarily adjourn from our regular council meeting. I have before me a motion for our consideration to make that happen that reads as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth adjourn at 7:07 p.m. for the purpose of a public meeting under the Planning Act concerning an application for zoning bylaw amendment by Arjen Leewerk on behalf of William Kruger and Anna Marie Kruger-Balder. Can I invite a mover? Councillor Anstedt, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Any discussion or debate on this matter? Then let's have that vote. And that is carried as well. Thank you. That means that this council is temporarily adjourned for the purpose of the public meeting. So welcome again. Now we're having a public meeting this is pursuant to the Planning Act for a proposed amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw. And I'm glad that those who've come have made it out tonight. We appreciate your attendance. This is a statutory public meeting pursuant to the Ontario Planning Act to deal with the application for an amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw submitted by Arjen Leewerk on behalf of William Kruger and Anna Marie Kruger-Balder as owner of the subject property. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this application will be considered by council. Those in attendance wishing to make comment concerning this application will be given an opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal council's decision must make verbal submission during this public meeting or have made a written submission to the council. Those who want to receive notice of the municipality's decision concerning this application are asked to sign the sheet that is available, I believe, on the back table, just inside the door, giving their mailing address and telephone number. At this time, I will call on North Perth planner Sean Yilmaz, who will present a summary of this application for an amendment. Mr. Yilmaz, welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Kasenberg, members of council. The zoning bylaw amendment application submitted by Arjen Leewerk on behalf of property owners William Kruger and Anna Marie Kruger-Balder requests to amend the zoning of the subject lands as a requirement of County of Perth application for consent B5019, which conditionally approved a surplus farm dwelling severance. The subject property, which is located within the agriculture designation of the County of Perth official plan and is within the agricultural zone of the North Perth zoning bylaw, is an exterior lot located at the southeast corner of line 86 and road 153 and is municipally known as 5475 Perth line 86. Both the retained and severed lots will remain in the agricultural zone, but will include conditions imposed through the consent process and as a requirement of the provincial policy statement and the County of Perth official plan. Section 5.6.3.1 of the County of Perth official plan requires an amendment to the local implementing zoning bylaw that will prohibit any new permanent residential dwellings from establishing on the retained farmland, and that the proposed severed lot, which has the surplus dwelling, must only be used for residential purposes. As such, the retained farmland, which is approximately 43 hectares or 106 acres, will be placed into the agricultural A-62 zone. The A-62 zone prohibits any dwelling or mobile home from establishing on the property in the future. Additionally, the severed lands, which are approximately 1.2 hectares or 3 acres, will be placed into the agricultural 1 subscript 7 zone. This zone limits use to one single detached residential dwelling and accessory uses. The subscript 7 recognizes a reduced lot frontage and minimum interior side yard for an existing accessory structure. The severed lot contains an existing dwelling, shed, septic, and well. This application for a zoning bylaw amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the County of Perth official plan, and meets the requirements of the North Perth zoning bylaw. It is staff's recommendation that Council approve the zoning bylaw amendment application. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'll call on the clerk. Ms. Beerfelds, can you provide us with information about the notice of public meeting details?
Notices inviting persons to the public meeting were mailed on November the 18th, 2019 by first class mail to landowners within 120 meters of the subject property and emailed to all applicable agencies. The notice was posted on the municipal website and on the subject property on November 18th, 2019, advising of the public meeting.
Thank you. And further to the clerk, can you summarize for us any correspondence, comments, and reports that have been received to date on this application?
I have not received any correspondence.
Thank you. So at this time, those who are in attendance who wish to support the application, other than the applicant, are invited to come to the podium and have the opportunity to speak. Anyone wishing to do that? Seeing no indication of that, those who are in opposition to this application may also come forward to the podium at this time to speak. Seeing no indication of that, the applicant or the agent may approach the podium and if they should wish to speak. Okay, thank you. Council, at this time, do you have any questions or comments that you'd like addressed pertaining to this application? Seeing none, I will conclude the meeting by suggesting that notice of the decision will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. The Council's decision is subject to appeal to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Council, then before me I have, let me change the inputs here. There we go, put the screen back up. Before me I have a resolution to conclude, to conclude this meeting, this public meeting, that reads as follows: that the public meeting for the purpose of a Planning Act application is now adjourned at 7:14 p.m. and that Council reconvene into regular open council. Councillor Behrens will move that, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Seiler. Any discussion or debate? Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That means we are back in session. At this time, there are two matters to consider with regards to this application. The first is a resolution, the second, the bylaw. So I have a draft of a resolution that reads as follows for our consideration. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the application for a zoning bylaw amendment affecting property described as part of lots 51 and 52, concession 1, 5475 Perth Line 86, in the Elma Ward in the Municipality of North Perth. The proposal is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2014, conforms to the policies of the County of Perth Official Plan, and meets the provisions of the North Perth zoning bylaw. Can I invite a mover for this? Deputy Mayor Callum, thank you, and Councillor Behrens as our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Let's have that vote. And that is carried. And then we have the second matter, which is the bylaw to enable this for consideration. Bylaw number 139-2019, being a bylaw to amend the North Perth zoning bylaw number 6-ZB-1999 as amended, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I invite a mover for that? Councillor Behrens, thank you, and Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate on this one? Let's have that vote. And that is carried as well. Thank you. That brings us to item 4.2 on our agenda. Is our delegate here? Our delegate is here. Thank you. We have one delegation to council this evening. I'll invite Mr. Christopher Malcolm of the Quendrake Arts Centre to address us about a community arts initiative. Welcome, Mr. Malcolm.
Thank you. People present.
Thank you.
So, Your Worship, Todd Kaysenberg, and the councillors of the Municipality of North Perth, my name is Christopher Malcolm, and I am here speaking for the Owendeke Arts Centre, 311 Main Street, East Listowel. I want to start by thanking you for meeting with me today. I believe this will be the beginning of a conversation useful to both you and my aspirations in this community. It's good to be here. For 115 years, between 1888 and 2003, 311 Main Street was a Baptist church, and it was their congregation that planted that glorious tree that now stands at the corner of Davidson and Main. It was planted there during a ceremony on VE Day, 1945, 74 years ago. Last year, the municipality carefully removed a large dead limb from it, and earlier this year, when work was done sinking a new catch basin at the corner, your crew took special care not to damage the roots of this now great tree. I'm very grateful for that, and by extension to you, I'm grateful also to them. They were a lot of fun to work around. The Baptists in 2003 sold the property to Steph and Justin Webster, who visualized and then created, and then for 13 years lovingly and intelligently ran Theatre 311 in this beautifully modified and repurposed structure. I've met dozens of people with stories of having performed on the 311 stage, stories of having seen productions, seen sisters and brothers and children in performance, been touched by it. Jared Kiso is quite clear that his theatre experience in Listowel was the reason he chose Letterkenny over lumber as he carried on with his life. I learned this listening to CBC radio show Q as I was driving along Highway 86. Seemed to me the best episode of Q ever recorded. Theatre 311 was designed to give a great deal to this place. My intention is to carry on this tradition and add to it. Since I bought the building, I hired a local crew to strip off the roof, sheath it in plywood and new shingles. I've replastered it and repainted the ceiling. In the Grand Performance Hall, I've invested in a Yorkville Elite sound system new LED stage lights with a computerized scene lighting control system, video projection and recording equipment. I built an up-to-the-minute tech booth that blends old technology with digital components, making the performance space one of the most effective and versatile facilities I know. During the past 2 years, it's been given 2 theatrical test runs, Never Swim Alone, produced by Steve Bell, Rachel Nafziger, and Shay Kramer, local people. And this past year, Steph Webster returned with Black Door Theatre and produced Lone Star. It is their goal to mount regular productions on into the future. You have in your documents, number 2, photo images of the contract and paid nickel I charged Steve, Rachel, and Shay, and the quarter I charged Steph. Actually, I charged her nickel, but she insisted on a quarter at the time. She wouldn't take my price for their use of the center for both rehearsals and performance. Back in 2017, I invited the people of Listowel to a public meeting of the ONDK Arts Centre through an article in the Banner. Gary Moon and a dozen others attended. My position at the time was, though I owned the mortgage and the responsibility for changing the light bulbs and securing insurance and paying for the gas and electricity and other utilities, in actuality, we were sitting in a place that truly belonged to Listowel, the people of Listowel, the community here. Over the course of the past 2 years, there have been theatrical readings of new scripts in the space. There have been historical lectures staged by the ONDK Seminar. Our basement is filled with 26 pairs of training stilts waiting to catch the imagination of the young with the possibilities of theatre. The stage is regularly being used as a practice platform by a band from Stratford. Nando and the North Perth Singers have expressed interest in using it to perform, and we have secured a keyboard to meet their needs. It's our intention to bring the place to life in the service of community arts. The next immediate priority is either the installation of a full access elevator or a wheelchair ramp to the grand performance hall level, but with this we need some form of assistance. I'm not exactly sure how that will unfold. It's my request that the property be returned to the pre-existing small theatre condition of the Assessment Act, Revised Statutes of Ontario 1990, Chapter A31, Section 326, as shown in your documents, the green label 4, and that this be made retroactive to the day the property came into my care. Currently, the 311 Main Street East is designated commercial property, not the small theatre that it is. This is the first order of business. The second is more interactive. 25 years ago, a small group of us wondered how many non-pop, now this is on a slightly different level. This is not directly related to the theatre, but this is directly related to what I hope to achieve in this community. 25 years ago, a small group of us wondered how many non-pop music concerts there were each month in Southern Ontario. Choral, classical, world, and jazz music. We could not hear it until we saw it, and we were astonished. The place was simply alive with music. There were over 1,200 listings a month, and this was just the tip of the haystack. We invented Whole Note magazine to serve the love of music across the region. You have 2 issues of this magazine in your documents, with the first one being our 5 Canary pages, dedicated entirely to choral music, and the second being our Green Summer Festivals issue. If you look at the number 6, Green Summer Festivals issue, you will see that Whole Note has played a significant role in the success of Stratford summer music. It was the 2018 cover story. That's the one that you have there. The Elora Festival, the Midland Festival of the Bay, the Collingwood Summer Music Festival, Guelph Jazz, the Leith Summer Music Festival, Kincardine Summer Music Festival, the Sweetwater Festival, and the Shelburne Heritage Music Festival, though I got to say the Old Time Fiddlers Contest pre-existed by about 1,000 years. Listen well. Listowel is alive with music, but it is hard to hear in the same way it was in the past. For us and with Whole Note. Mr. Mayor, I watched you lead a room filled with joyful voices this past summer, and it reminded me of the early days of Whole Note. It was brilliant and inspiring. So what about festivals? We're surrounded by communities with music festivals, but unlike Kincardine, Wingham, Kitchener, and Elora, we are not a music festival destination. Ontario does not have a chamber choir festival. We could bring one to life here, creating a whole new revenue stream for the churches in this municipality. I had the privilege to lead two joint Trinity Atwood United and Knox Presbyterian services this past summer, and I know how these communities, these congregations thirst for renewal, creative renewal. Ontario does not have a sound healing festival, but if one were started here, it could do quite well. There's no Renaissance Music Festival to remind Stratford what it was always supposed to sound like, but North Perth needs a Perth County conspiracy of sound, and this could happen. The ONDK Centre, and I would like to propose that We add Listowel to the Whole Note Festival landscape in partnership with you and with your staff and the North Perth Arts and Culture Council. Partnership as a community theatre, a festival hub, a community arts generator. We wish to work with you, and we wish to be put to work. That's the second order of business. But I was given a few minutes, so I'll finish this thing off. One last thought. I'll give you my grand vision. The final object, the very last page that you have in your folder, is a map labeled 7. You will not have seen this map before because I drew it and it has not widely been published, though you can find a copy of it on the slipcover of a book in the Listowel branch of the North Perth Library System. That would be this book here. It's printed on the back of that. That you can borrow this book anytime you want. It's a book I wrote some years back. The map is called Owendake. Owendake is an Iroquoian word, and it means the island. The people who lived here, we would call the Wendat or the Wendat, they were islanders. Because they can perceive that Lakes Ontario, Lake Erie, Lake Huron, Georgian Bay, and the Kawartha Lakes as being a single complex freshwater sea, the largest freshwater sea in the known universe. Owendake, southern Ontario, this place where we live, and they lived, was the island at the heart of that freshwater sea. You have to cross water to get here, you have to cross water to go away. From Owen Sound to Niagara on the Lake, Windsor to Picton, you are in a place that I recognize as home. The look of the buildings, the feelings, the spiritual texture, the underlying sense of human perspective, what is normal in terms of politics and purpose and humor, cross out of this place into New York or Quebec, Michigan or Russia, and you know you are somewhere else. I come from Owendake, an invisible island on an invisible sea, and that makes sense to me. It makes sense in ways that I only partly understand, but I absolutely breathe. The very center of that ancient island on the map before you is where Listowel now stands. The Owendake has a center, and it is here. This is why I've called 311 Main Street the Owendake Arts Center. It's my dream that all the plays performed here will be written by playwrights from this place that is my home, reflecting us as the distinct culture that we are. This is what theatre was always made for. There is no theatre in Southern Ontario that currently meets such a mandate. This theatre will establish such a voice with your help and with the community. That's what I've come to say. Joe.
Thank you very much.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Malcolm. You know how to touch close to home for this mayor, apparently.
Well, yeah.
Very good. Councillors, do you have any questions for Mr. Malcolm? I think there's some exciting ideas that have been presented for us to think about. The first matter, I believe, is something that can be addressed in working with our staff, the request for change in the property tax status, and I assume that the staff can assist with that. Is that right, Mr. Snell?
Certainly, it's something we have to check through with MPAC. It's MPAC will make the final determination, but we can work through with the finance department to help go through that process.
Fair enough. My thought there is that it would be good to, MPAC is really unaware, as the community will be, of what has been happening in the theatre, and if you could convey that to them, I think they'd understand.
Okay, thank you. And for the other matters, thank you for drawing it to our attention, and we look forward to next steps. Perhaps you can present some call to action in terms of specific things that we as a community can do to support your dream, your vision.
Thank you. Joe.
Thank you.
Bye.
Very good. That brings us to agenda item 5.1. The CAO has advised that his department has no reports for this regular meeting. Next up is item 5.2. For item 5.2, I will invite North Perth Clerk Pat Bearfelds to provide us with background on the proposed appointment of new canine control agents. Ms. Bearfelds.
So it's certainly with regret this evening that I am bringing forth this report announcing the retirement of Jackie and Vince Smith. They have been long-time employees, not necessarily employees, but contracted employees with the municipality. Prior to that, with the municipalities of Alma Township and Wallace prior to amalgamation. So this retirement is very certainly with regrets. Jackie and Vince have been a couple that have been available to North Perth citizens 24/7. They have ventured out in the middle of the night to assist the OPP with a found dog, and they are people that have been at home receiving calls and picking up dogs at any time. What we have found as staff moving forward with this announcement, it has become very difficult to find another Mr. and Mrs. Smith that's willing to give this commitment. Even while they're gone on vacation, and has been for the last few years, family have tried to help, but it's very difficult to find someone to come in and give us the 24/7 that we've been accustomed to. So in conversation with our neighbors, the West Perth and Perth East, as well as the city of Stratford, they have entered into an agreement with the Stratford Perth Humane Society and have been very satisfied with the service that they're receiving. So tonight before you, I have a report for that consideration. What I've provided you with is an agreement for council's consideration. If council deems it appropriate, staff will bring it back at your meeting on December the 16th. As well, I have for you the proposal in regards to the cost, and you're going to ask what are the costs and compared to what we're doing now. If we're willing to stay within the number of dogs that has been outlined in the contract, it will be very similar to the costs that we've been accustomed to, with the opportunity of leaving the dog tag price at the amount that it is, and the contract that we're willing to sign up with the Humane Society could be very similar. I do recognize that this will be a first year test, I would say. We're hoping that we can stay within those number of dogs. Traditionally, working with Jackie and Vince, we would have an average of 200 calls. So you're going to say, well, how do you feel that you're going to handle 150? 50 of those, at least, if not more, would be calls where we are requesting them to go out dealing with a dog that's excessive barking. Complaint has been received. Individual residents that are not necessarily picking up after their dogs, so we're receiving a complaint. Jackie and Vince have assisted us with that in the past. Going forward, that will be a North Perth Clerk's Department working with the bylaw enforcement officer to take care of that. That certainly will not be a requirement of the Humane Society. So that's why I'm hoping that we can stay within the number of calls outlined in your proposal. As well as I have for you there is schedules dealing with their what they're willing to do for North Perth, including training, what they would really like if council deems it appropriate for us to move forward with it. They would like myself, along with staff, that applicable staff, to travel to their location, see their pounds, see how they treat the dogs, what they're willing to do for us, as well as they would like to do some training with any individual staff here in North Perth, for instance, by law enforcement officers, maybe a couple of the public works staff that will be assisting, and actually take some training from them, high-level training, in order to deal with dogs. Not that we're going to be putting our staff in any type of situation similar, but it still would be important to know how to approach a dog, I think, and just some things, tips that we can learn from them. So tonight before you, council, I have this proposal to move forward with an opportunity to work with the Humane Society for at least 1 year, and we can revisit it and decide whether or not it's good for North Perth.
Councillors, questions or comments at this time? Councillor Seidler?
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Yes, Pat, they will be missed. They did a very good service for us, and they were like hands-on people that people could approach them. I guess I'm looking at, I'm fine with this. Are we still going to look for somebody local? Like, we did have a delegation with a dog park, pet park, from the people up at the end of town there, the Pet Value. Would we approach them to see if they could help us in any way to have, because they have a store there, or store hours?
They certainly have that, but they're not necessarily persons that can assist us with what Jackie and Vince has been performing. They have a very nice establishment where they have dogs and animals or pets for sale, but not necessarily would they be able to come and help me to take a dog. They do not have an inspected or a licensed kennel in order to proceed with that.
So
and changes have been happening, and Jackie and Vince have been faced with that at their kennel. It certainly met all the requirements, but as you know, the stipulations and requirements are increasing, and it's become very difficult. And secondly, you have to live in the agricultural zone in order to have a kennel.
Thank you. Mr. Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. And thanks, Pat, for the report. Can you just confirm for us, my reading of the report and the agreement is that there will no longer be sort of property to property going to deal with dog tags and selling them and so on, correct? That's not the case. So all dog owners and so on will have to come to the municipal office to undertake that. Is that correct?
Exactly. Thank you for bringing that up. So going forward, we're no longer going to have door-to-door dog tag sales. As you know, with technology and the way people like to proceed with their purchases and how they like to work today, having the opportunity to do it online, being able to pay online and receive their dog tag is the way people want to go. So we're not seeing it economically being the right way to go any longer. In a couple of years, we may look at a process for enumeration of dogs because things change. We will have to go back out there to rest assured that dogs are living where we think they're living. So in the new year, staff have looked at a whole new process here internally as to how we're going to move forward with that. The actual dog tag, along with an invoice, is going out to the individuals that we believe have dogs. If you don't have a dog any longer or something's happened to your dog, it's your responsibility to get back to the office. Let us know that. We will financially work that out. And as well, going forward, if newcomers come to North Perth, as part of the welcoming package, we'll make sure that new dog owners are well aware how you get a dog tag for your dog.
Very good. Thank you. Councillor Andreessen, you're good. Okay. Councillor Johnston.
So, looking at the animal control services that they're going to provide, if somebody had a dog show up at their farm on a Friday evening at 6,
Right.
they're not going to come and get it. That's what I read here, unless it's vicious, rabid, or injured.
That's right.
So, by calling them, will they, if this dog has a North Perth tag on it, will they tell them whose dog it is?
Absolutely. So
The way
as
Vince and Jackie do now?
Exactly, as we do it today, and that's why the opportunity will be that if someone finds a dog on your farm and it has a North Perth dog tag, you're going to be able to call here to the municipal office, and we're very quickly going to be able to tell you who the dog owner is. If you would like to call them, or North Perth staff will call them on your behalf, we'll make arrangements for the dog to pick up. Similar, the Humane Society will do the same thing. It is, yes, if we can solve that and as quickly, it's financially a far better system, and we're hoping that continues to work out. But you're right, if there's a vicious dog or someone's quite concerned for public safety, they will be there to pick it up.
Excellent, thank you.
Anything further?
So just further to that, Mayor Todd, I have also made note of our Schedule K. What we've done is there's no increase in the dog fees. It's going to stay at the $25. We had a lot of information on the schedule due to spade and neutering of the dogs and second dogs. We as staff have decided to move forward with it's $25 a dog. It's so much simpler for all of us. And then when it comes time that you have not got the dog tag at the deadline, the fee just doubles. It just makes it easier for staff and less confusion for everyone.
Very good. Any further questions? Okay, I have a resolution drafted for our consideration that reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive the report Re Canine Control Services, Stratford Perth Humane Society, and further that Council approve entering into an agreement with the Stratford Perth Humane Society to provide canine control services for the Municipality of North Perth, and further that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth proceed to approve the proposed amendments to the dog fees effective immediately. Can I invite a mover for this? Councillor Johnston, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Rothwell, thank you. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing no indication of that, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Next up, you've noticed that the clerk hasn't moved very far. Brings us to item 5.2.2, which is pertaining to the proposed drainage reapportionments. Pat.
If I can make just one further comment to what we've just done, the amendments to the schedule, you'll find it later on tonight's agenda under bylaws. Working with Mark Hackett, we've chosen to have one bylaw for all our amendments to the rates and fee bylaw tonight.
Great.
So the next report is in regards to drainage reapportionments. Danette has prepared a report for you. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. It's all about the new land severances and how we deal with the drainage going forward. There's actually, if I remember, 8 agreements here tonight for council consideration. If you deem it appropriate, then we'll move forward with signing those apportionments as per the Drainage Act.
Councillors, any questions of Clerk Bearfeltz on this matter? The mayor gets to try to pronounce some of these names. So I have a draft resolution for you. Scott, you'll set me straight, right? Thank you. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth authorizes the clerk to sign the agreements of drainage reapportionment affecting the following municipal drains: Ilkama Municipal Drain, Wallace Ward; Warham Branch B Municipal Drain, Wallace Ward; Warham Branch A Municipal Drain, Wallace Ward; Warham Main Municipal Drain, Wallace Ward; Soden Municipal Drain, Wallace Ward; Wenzel Municipal Drain, Wallace Ward; Ilkama Branch A Municipal Drain, Elma Ward; and Ilkama Main Municipal Drain, Elma Ward. I'm getting the okay from Scott. Can I invite him over for that? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Councillor Seiler is our seconder. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have the vote. And that is carried as well. Thank you. Thank you, Clerk Bearfeltz. We have no reports indicated from our interim manager of recreation or our director of finance treasurer tonight. So that brings us to item 5.5. Let's turn to item 5.5.1. Council is asked to consider fee schedule revisions for water and wastewater rates. Mr. Hackett, our manager of environmental services, is going to address this one. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg and Council. This first report is Schedule Q of the Fees and Licenses Bylaw. It's for water and wastewater rates. As Council will recall, water and wastewater rates are user fees. They're not on the tax levy, so this doesn't affect our budgeting at all that way. I've attached the rate plan. It was the one that had some markings in yellow. And basically, that's showing the proposed rate increases for water at 0.5%. And for wastewater services at 5%. That's what we've been following that plan for a number of years now, I think since about 2015, 2014. And that has an effect of approximately, for consumption, about just over $5 a month for water and sewer on the consumption basis. If we look at the actual Schedule Q, there's a couple other things. So that first page of Schedule Q, which has the water and wastewater rates, those rates are just taken from that page with the rate plan. Looking at the second page, I'll go over a couple of the increases there. The new service under miscellaneous rates for water, new service, it's been at $5,000 for a couple of years, so we're proposing it goes to $5,500, and that the extra fee for winter insulation go up another $500 to $3,500 from $3,000. And those are mirrored in the sewer rates a little bit further down the page. For the new service would be $5,500, and I missed this on the one that you have. It should be $3,500 for the extra fee for winter installation. Another change here would be the wastewater lateral connection permit. It's currently $100. We're proposing it move to $150. We've included a discharger information report administration fee. That's something that's in our current bylaw, but we didn't actually have a fee for it at all, so we're just adding a $50 fee for that. That's for if there's a new business or a new commercial or industrial place coming to the municipality, that we would be able to get a form filled out that tells what the product they would be putting out or what they would be putting out in their wastewater, so we know if it meets the sewer use bylaw. And then finally, the last one on that page is an unpaid account transfer to taxes fee, and that would be set at $100. So that's if people don't pay their bills, that gets transferred to their taxes at a $100 fee. The next page is the hauled wastewater and extra strength surcharge fees, and it's sort of a big formula that we use. It's just been, the only change to it is we've sort of differentiated between two different things. We have hauled wastewater and we have extra strength surcharge water that we receive. So this just distinguishes between the two and the different rates that are charged for that. And that's it. I could answer any questions about those.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions about this report? Love that equation. It's very promising. I have a resolution for our consideration that reads as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the proposed amendments to Schedule Q of the Fees and Licenses bylaw for implementation for the first billing in 2020. Can I invite him over for this? Deputy Mayor Callum, thank you. And Councillor Rothwell is our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And Mark, you're up again to talk about the landfill.
Yes, Schedule J. And last year we set the landfill tipping fee at $95 per metric ton. And we're proposing that it be moved to $97 per metric ton. Point 2 in my comments of this report, it should actually read Blue Water Recycling Association 2020 increase, not 2019. But anyway, that increase, we're looking at an increase of 12.6% for recycling and waste collection fee increasing by 2%. Historically speaking, the recycling cost increases have been about half the cost of living for the past 30 years. And there's been some, this increase is rather significant. However, there's a lot of uncertainty. And I've listed a few of the things that Blue Water provided, some of the issues they're facing, the skilled workforce shortage, the whole issue with China phasing out of purchasing recyclables, the collection equipment cost and availability, insurance cost and availability, and also the uncertainty around the individual producer responsibility program and where that's going. We've seen that with the tire program, and that's coming for some other parts of what we see at the waste, involved with waste. So I've included a chart looking at our fees for the automated collection program, and in that small little chart we have in the middle is the North Perth 2019 fees. That's what they currently are. So for the small, medium, large, they're 93, 138, and 195. If you look to the left of that, we have what the average fee is of the surrounding municipalities. There's also an attachment with more additional information where those numbers came from. So you can see that we are, find my page here. For the small bins, we're proposing to go, for the small is to go to 100, 150 for the medium, and 230 for the large. We're still below the average charges for the surrounding areas. This is a significant portion of where we get our revenue from for the solid waste program. We are attempting to move away from having solid waste operations on the tax levy. So this is one way that we're doing that, by our tipping fees and by our automated collection fees. So that's basically it. If we look at the actual Schedule J, there's just a few changes. So that was proposed to go to 97 tons for for the garbage. The waste wood, D, is always half the tipping fee, so it would go to $48.50. Further down, we're proposing a $1 increase to the mattress and box spring program. On the second page, the environmentally suitable soil is always at the tipping fee, so that would be $97. And then those ones I just mentioned for the annual fees for the solid waste program of $100, $150, and $230.
Thank you, Mark. Councillors, any questions or comments at this point? Councillor Seiler?
Just the tipping fees on the mattresses, Mark. we were at 13, and would 15 be sufficient?
We started at 12 the last couple of years, so I've been putting it up $1 a year. We pay more than that. This is a program that doesn't quite pay for itself, but it's a sort of a big picture program where you have to look at the landfill space we're saving. You know, we do about 6 53-foot trailer loads a year, and if you add that up over the past 3 years, that's a significant amount of space, and there's a true value to that. It's hard to put an actual dollar figure on it. So I think we're moving in the right direction with that, and I plan to keep increasing that over the next few years. I did include, I believe, in the chart that I gave you what the mattress program tipping fees are. So we're right around. Some of them are up to 25. Some of them are as low as 10. So if council so chooses to make it 15, I wouldn't have a problem with moving it to 15 either.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments about this report? Okay, seeing none, I have a proposed resolution for our consideration that reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth proceed to approve the proposed amendments to the landfill fees effective January 1st, 2020. Can I invite a mover for that? Councillor Anstead, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Seiler. Discussion or debate? Let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. For item 5.6, first up is item 5.6.1, a report about a request for the improvement of the Turnbull Municipal Drain. Have I got that right? Yes. We have Drainage Superintendent Scott Richardson here to present information about this request. Scott, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg, Council. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider Section 78 under the Drainage Act for the Turnbull Municipal Drain in the Alma Ward. The drain begins on Lot 20, Concession 6, and ends in Lot 6, Concession 7. The last report was prepared by S.W. Archibald Engineering on May 30th, 1948. The report was adopted under Bylaw 231. Excuse me. Initially, a request for maintenance under Section 74 was received September the 11th, and an on-site meeting was held on October the 10th. From this meeting, it was requested that in addition to the clean-out, culverts need to be replaced, as well as new ones added. The original report and bylaw, as well as maintenance, the maintenance schedule from the 1948 is now obsolete. A new engineer's report is now required to update and deal with these issues. The request to complete these drainage improvements on the Turnbull Municipal Drain as per Section 78 of the Drainage Act was received on November 13th, 2019. The municipality has 3 road crossings along the drain that could be included as the works. The recommendation is that the Council and Municipality of North Perth, in accordance with Section 78 of the Drainage Act, proceed with the request for improvement of the Turnbull Municipal Drain.
Questions or comments, councillors? Seeing no indication of that, I have a resolution for our consideration, which he just read, so he stole my thunder, but that's fine. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, in accordance with Section 78 of the Drainage Act, proceed with the request for improvement of the Turnbull Municipal Drain. Can I invite a mover? Councillor Johnston, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Richardson, thank you. Any debate or discussion? Let's trigger that vote. Doug's stuck in the drain. Doug is voting in favor. That means the motion is carried. We'll hope that Deputy Mayor can get to his get out of the drain. Maybe that's the way to look at this. Okay. Next up is item 5.6.2. For this item, staff has recommended the appointment of an engineer to investigate possible improvements to the Spears drain. Please.
Okay. On October the 28th, in 2019, the Council of the Municipality of North Perth passed resolution number 586.10/19. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth, in accordance with Section 4 of the Drainage Act, proceed with the petition for a new drain, or part of the Spears Drain, Branch A, in the Wallace Ward. Recommendation?
No, I got it. I got it. I got it.
Okay.
All right. Councillors, any questions on this report? All right. Lots of smiles all around. Thank you. Well, now I get to have the thunder. Here's the proposed resolution that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, in accordance with Section 4 of the Drainage Act, appoints GM Blue Plan Engineering Limited to investigate the possible improvements to the new municipal drain in the Wallace Ward. The new municipal drain in the Wallace Ward. I shouldn't say that as a question. That's the statement. Moved by Councillor Behrens, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Any discussion or debate? Did they solve your technical problem? All right, the Deputy Mayor's back on. Let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thanks, Scott. Nice to see you. We have no reports tonight indicated from the fire department, which brings us to item 6 on our agenda. For item 6.1, councillors, are there any reports you would like to ask of staff? Seeing no indication of same, I'm going to surrender the chair temporarily for item 6.2. Deputy Mayor Kellum will take the chair so that I may enter into the discussion of the motion that I indicated would be coming for this meeting. So let's just swap places. Go ahead. So my purpose is a simple one, and that is to give councillors more time for deliberation in the community with their constituents pertaining to the business of council. I have taken note that and heard some concern about the fact that, in fact, we receive our agenda package and materials on the Friday later in the day and wind up having to turn over on this by Monday, this meeting, which isn't a lot of lead time for us to consult with our constituents and consider the various positions that we might take on the matters before us. To effect that outcome, I've proposed, as you see, a resolution that I've put before council for the purposes of making several changes in our procedural bylaw that will change the date of the release of the council package to the Wednesday as opposed to the Friday. That gives us a little bit more time to consider our actions, to consider what our constituents are hoping we will take care of, and to think through positions and talk to those in the community who may have important information to share with us on those positions. This is not inconsistent with the county. The county gives a little bit more lead time than North Perth's current procedural bylaw does. So the purpose of this was to sort of make that change to give us some more time with regards to considering the materials that are put before us. There is naturally a rollback that will create some imposition on staff. There's no question that there's an impact on staff in this. And they can speak to that should they wish. But certainly I think there's an opportunity here for us to be more considered in our understandings and in our decisions, deliberations. And I think that when we look at this in the broad scheme, it improves our ability to do our jobs well.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Todd? Councillor Johnson.
You might have
So
pressed.
my worry, and don't take these negative comments. My worry is that if there's something that we decide on tonight, is that too quick of turnaround to have, something that we want back next Monday? Is that too quick to have the expectations on staff to get a report done and have it for the agenda for Wednesday? That's my worry, is that so something that's decided tonight actually wouldn't come back for 2 weeks because it may be too quick. So are we delaying some projects that way? I'm not saying I'm opposed to it fully, But I'm just worried about expectations on staff and more timing on their part.
Who would like to answer this or speak to it?
Number 13, press 13.
Depending on the nature of the subject in the report, possibly, just be on how fast we can turn it, because basically it gives us a day and a half. That requires both the department head to do the research as well as me to review the report. So it could delay that time 1 week, possibly.
Anyone else? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor, and I appreciate Mayor Todd's consideration on this issue. And I think back over my career and so on, and certainly whenever agendas historically have gone out or been available for councillors and certainly members of the public, with the advent of the posting them on the websites and so on, that was never available to the public prior to this. We are in an information age, and I appreciate that. But I mean, having the opportunity for councillors and the public actually receiving them more or less at the same time to review the documents for a meeting Monday. I think we all knew this as we ran for election and so on, that we as councillors were going to have to give up some of our time over that weekend to prepare. And of course, I mean, some of our agendas are 200 plus pages and longer, and it does take time. And likewise, it does take time for our public to see that. I am concerned, as Councillor Johnson has said, in terms of the turnaround time, because our agendas, for the most part, seem to be getting longer, and the issues that we're dealing with seem to be more substantial, and there's more time that's required to actually put a report that gives us the substance that we need. So I'm not necessarily in favor of seeing the date change from the current Friday to the Wednesday on that basis. I understand the reason you've got proposed, but I'm just concerned from our standpoint in terms of moving forward and being able to make those decisions in a relatively short time frame. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this? Councillor Barnes?
I would like to ask staff, is it doable? Like, having been there, I'm not so sure that this is even doable, because anyone who wants to come as a delegation, then that bumps all of that time up as well. I don't know if we would consider, it would have been nice to have a little bit of discussion prior to this motion coming forward to see what everyone, council members, thought. If the answer is really because of issues that councillors may have in going through 200 pages of information on a weekend, if that truly is the reason why we're doing it, then it would have been nice to actually ask us. Would a Thursday be better?
Logistically, it is doable, and I did have a conversation with the mayor. It does the public would have to become aware of those timelines being bumped up, so it probably would be a delegation would have to be into the clerk's office by Tuesday now. And there might be times where, Monday, there might be times where we can't put something on the agenda very late, which we do now. So I guess the public would have to become accustomed to that they can't even bring correspondence in on a Friday, because it'll be too late. You'll have to wait a week. But other than that, those are the concerns that staff would have. It would be a tight turnaround the first time we go through it, but it would just become a new routine for both staff and public and council.
Thank you. Councillor Seiler, 1 moment, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Judah brought up a good point. Thursday. I think Thursday would be fair. We get it Thursday. That gives me time. If I see something on the agenda, I can get a hold of staff on a Friday and talk to them and go over it. If I get it on the Friday, it's a weekend and I don't bother staff on weekends, I would like to see us accommodate Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sire. Councillor Richardson?
Through you, Chair, thank you. I also agree with what's been being stated. I think the Wednesday could be doable, but I think that the Thursday could be a little more practical. And for that case of being able to discuss something for further clarification with staff member, you do have the Friday. It is bumped up 24 hours. I do agree because some of the packages are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it can take up a good chunk. That's why we're here, but it can take up a significant chunk of time adequately preparing for the meeting. But I would be in agreement of it, and I would think it would be a little bit more courtesy to the staff. You know, a delegation could come forward on that Tuesday if it was a Thursday deadline for posting and stuff. That possibly, that if it would be under consideration for the mayor to consider the motion, that possibly Thursday at 4:30 might be. It's still another 24 hours, and it gives one full business day of staff interaction time, if required, if necessary. But I think also to give us a little extra time to actually have and adequately prepare for a meeting and have time to read it all sometimes, that I think that would be of benefit as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Anyone else like to speak on this? So before I read this lengthy motion, would the person that brought this motion forward like to change the date?
Thank you. I'm certainly open to the possibility of moving it to Thursday. That seems like a reasonable compromise if that's the interest of councillors here. Does that have any significant impact on staff rhythms that would be different than the Wednesday in any particular way? Pat or Chris?
Well, if I can make comment, by going with 24 hours later, but it certainly gives Annette and I an opportunity to recover from the meeting tonight. Right now, it doesn't matter what we do if the change, our work days and our work plan is now going to change. But we're willing to accept that. However, when we leave from tonight's meeting, the next 2 days are basically are dealing with tonight. There's lots of correspondence to be wrote. There's resolutions to be passed on to our colleagues. We have every day cataloged here, and we just follow it. So by giving us 24 hours would be greatly appreciated. That we can now do what we normally do on Tuesdays to recover, as we call it, from the council meeting, and then Wednesday we start gearing up, where normally it would be Thursday, gearing up for the next meeting. So I think Danette and I would appreciate the 24 hours.
Okay, then with regards to that, Deputy Mayor, I'd be happy to accept as a friendly amendment the Thursday to replace the word Wednesday in the motion throughout.
Okay, thank you. Any more comments from members of council? I do have a lengthy resolution here to read, so bear with me, please. And the motion states that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth amend bylaw number 40-2015, known as the Council and Committee Procedure Bylaw, as amended, section 6.1, subsection to read. The clerk shall ensure that a copy of the agenda for each regular council meeting is posted for public viewing on the municipal website no later than 4:30 on the Thursday preceding the scheduled meeting. And further that, the Council of the Municipality of North Perth amend bylaw number 40-2015, known as the Council and Committee Procedure Bylaw, as amended, section 15.1, subsection B to read. The agenda shall be available to members of council by 4:30 on the Thursday preceding the meeting to which it pertains. And further that, the Council of the Municipality of North Perth amend bylaw number 40-2015, known as the Council and Committee Procedure Bylaw, as amended to include the following definition in section 2, with the associated renumbering of subsections in this section to accommodate this change. Agenda means a package of documents assembled to support the conduct of a meeting, which includes a listing of items to be considered during the meeting as outlined in section 15 of this bylaw, and relevant and available reports, bylaw, drafts, and similar documentation to support an understanding of the business items to be conducted. These may be delivered in digital, paper, and/or other formats deemed relevant to support distribution and accessibility. And further that, the Council of the Municipality of North Perth amend bylaw number 40-2015, known as the Council and Committee Procedure Bylaw, as amended, section 16.2, to strike the word package from the text. And further that, the Council of the Municipality of North Perth direct the clerk to bring forward recommendations, including draft wording for sections 17 and 18 of bylaw number 40-2015 as amended, that will create an effective workflow for delegation process given the proposed earlier release of the council package. And further that, all amendments proposed in this resolution become effect for the third meeting of regular council in January 2020. Do I have a mover, please? Mayor Kaysenberg, and second by Councillor Seiler. Strike the vote, please.
You'll have to come over there. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. No worries. And that is carried. Thank you. That was a long one.
So the deputy mayor notes that that was long. Thanks, Doug. Appreciate that. That brings us to item 7. We have no items of correspondence beyond. Oh no, we have 2 items. Sorry, bad editing. We have 2 items of correspondence that staff has advised warrants some further action. So let's look at item 7.1. We have a request from the Listowel Kinsmen seeking permission to use the Listowel Memorial Arena for the 2020 Paddy Fest, including conditions of use of an AGCO special occasions permit and conformance with municipal policies and the Liquor License Act. Staff has prepared a draft resolution to effect this, which is as follows. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the request from the Listowel Kinsmen Club to utilize the Listowel Memorial Arena for Paddy Fest in 2020 under an AGCO Special Occasions Permit while adhering to municipal policies and the Liquor License Act. Can I invite a mover for that? Councillor Rothwell, thank you. Councillor Seiler is our seconder. Very good. Any questions, debate, discussion on this matter? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And then for item 7.2, a related matter, we have a request from the Listowel Kinsmen seeking permission to run a social gaming event as part of the 2020 Paddy Fest at the Kin Station. Staff has prepared the following draft resolution to support that. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth approved the request from the Listowel Kinsmen Club to run a social gaming event and CF information night at the Kin Station as part of Paddy Fest on Friday, March 13th, 2020 from 8 p.m. until 1 a.m. Can I invite a mover for that one? Councillor Anstedt and seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Let's have that vote as well. And that is carried as well. Thank you. That brings us to item 8 on our agenda, which allows council to consider and enact bylaws. We have item 8.1 before us at this time. Council is asked to enact a zoning bylaw amendment pertaining to a severance of a residential lot from lands currently zoned agricultural initiated by parties Bacher. I shall read into the record the bylaw resolution here. That bylaw number 123-2019 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 6-ZB-1999 as amended be introduced, read, and considered read a third time. No. First, second, and third time. Thank you. I'm taking my cues from the clerk here who's showing me hand signs. I'm quite impressed. First, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I invite a mover for this? Councillor Behrens, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Richardson. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. The concern that was expressed at our last meeting or at the public meeting was with respect to the fact as to whether or not the land area that was the Land Division Committee approved for the surplus farmhouse severance was in fact in conformity with the provincial policy statement and the County of Perth official plan regarding is this in fact the minimum amount of land that's required for the severance. Clearly, in the resolution that North Perth Council had that made that recommendation to the Land Division Committee, it accepted the advice of the county planner with respect to concerns regarding the lot size. Unbeknownst to us, the Land Division Committee made a decision which, although it did decrease slightly the land area and was along the laneway, it did not exclude the land areas that included 2 sheds and additional land which presumably in council's view at that time, the majority of council, that it was outside of the need for the minimum amount of land. This is an issue of concern, I think, to all of us, or else we wouldn't have had discussion at our last meeting. And I think there's a lot of concern about this very specific issue, and unfortunately, Councillor Duncan's not here to be able to answer the questions that from the Land Division standpoint, because he sits on the Land Division Committee, why they overruled the recommendation of this council, as well as dismissed the opinion of the county planner with respect to land area, and included the land area for the sheds, the 2 sheds, which are of significant size. So I'm really concerned about this, and frankly, unless I hear otherwise, I'm not in favor of the adoption of the bylaw.
Thank you. I think there are concerns raised that about the Land Division Committee's recent performance, or what they've done with regards to policy and practices related to this. I wonder if Mr. Yilmaz has any comments to make on this based on your understanding of our circumstances. Do you have anything to add to this, Sean? If you don't, it's okay, but...
Sure, and I understand council's concerns, and they're completely fair. Unfortunately, the situation from when I write a report to the zoning bylaw amendment, I'm not addressing the size of the property. I'm simply looking at the rezoning of the retained and the severed parcels, which are a requirement down from the provincial policy statement. I know the policy that we're speaking of in the County of Perth official plan speaks to the minimum size required for the residential use and the servicing. There is no formula or method to determine what is the minimum size. So again, it's in the interpretation of the planner who is writing the report. There is a miscommunication or a difference of opinion between this council and I guess the Land Division of today. Also, there may be a different interpretation on what the minimum size means. Unfortunately, I can't speak to the Land Division Committee and their decision because that's not part of my role here. I simply get the notice of decision, which is from an approval authority, an upper tier approval authority, and I just follow that decision. I can't speak too much more regarding why Land Division disregarded this council's recommendation. I do know that my understanding is that there was 2 options put forward to Land Division. One was the reduction that actually took place. That's all I really have for this. Thank you.
Do we have any data or information that pertains to recent history in the efforts of Land Division around these types of properties that would give us insight into the way they're thinking about these things?
I don't. They vary.
The clerk does? The clerk is looking like she might have something.
Yeah, and just from my own personal experience, they've gone all over the place. The one that this council recommended approving today was quite a bit larger than this one. And it wasn't scrutinized to the same extent, so I'm not really...
Okay. let's just wait for the clerk's table to see if they can retrieve any information. I believe there may have been a report to County Council about Land Division's activities at one point, which, Doug, does that ring a bell? Okay.
We have one application, B14, 2018, and the seven portion was 1.9 acres. We have another one, 2, 2018, 2.07 acres. Another one, B65, 2018, 1.3 acres. Another one, B35, 2019, 1.88 acres. Um, considered this evening, 2.19. So as you can see, it's all over the map.
Okay, so there is a certain amount of variation in what Land Division is doing. Certainly, as county councillors, we were aware of this and that there are concerns and even potentially some conflict between members of Land Division about how to proceed on interpreting the policies, the provincial policy statement, and the matter that that it is the official plan guidance on this. So I think I mean, it's hard for us to determine what Land Division's intent is. Land Division sent it back to us, and I believe the intention was that, as Sean said, it's our next step in the process is to look at the zoning bylaw amendment, right? Mr. Snell, you got anything on this one? No. Okay. Councillor Barons, let's let you in on this one.
Just a question, because if this zoning bylaw amendment is defeated, then the severance doesn't go through, correct?
Yes, it won't meet the conditions.
Because they can't
Yes.
fulfill the conditions. Were we made aware of Land Division's decision in a timely manner that we could have appealed? Was it drawn to our attention?
We have a consent applications were received by staff, which I don't know whether or not Winnipeg's decision was put in packages or.
Pat, is your microphone on?
But we do receive it from County Council in an appropriate manner. Yes, we do.
Okay, but this council didn't necessarily see that County Land Division had changed our recommendations or had not accepted our recommendation until such time as the time for appeal had passed. That's my understanding. Like, we can't appeal their decision. And we weren't made, like, if we had known about it, say within 20 days, we could have appealed their decision. But we didn't know about it as council at that point. So there's a little bit of a problem with the process as well. And certainly when North Perth makes a recommendation, it was under the understanding when the new land division came into play, and I know the history on it, and I can go into it as well as Mr. Rothwell can. It used to be members of the public, and specifically, County Council changed it so that the intention of the local municipality was heard, and yet they disregarded what we wanted. So there seems to be a real disconnect, and I'm not going to excuse the County Land Division Committee, but I'm not willing to excuse County Council itself, because they're the same people, quite frankly, and they don't even follow their own policy. So I think there's probably something further that this council should do in that regard. But when speaking to the zoning bylaw amendment, is it fair to the applicant, because of a failed process on 2 different occasions, to turn this down? That would be my question.
Thank you for those thoughts. Anyone else before we give a second crack at this to Alan? Dave?
I'm maybe not the best one to speak because I voted against every one of these, and I will vote against this one because I don't like this surplus farm severances. I just will point out that one of the reasons I really wanted those sheds out is because they cannot be accessed from the house side. The sheds have always been accessed from where there used to be a barn, so all the doors are on the east side. So leaving them with the house and the lot line just in behind those sheds, there is really no access to them. You know, and I don't think they're going to change the doors from one side to the other on a 40-year-old shed. But I will be voting against it because I don't like them.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to weigh in on this? Alan, you ready?
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. Just further to Councillor Barron's comments, in terms of the notices that come from the Land Division Committee, their text, the text of the decision is there, and I agree with our clerk that notices were given and they were in our agenda package as items of correspondence and so on. There's no sketch. There's no ability for us as councillors, unless we're going to roll up our sleeves and verify that exactly what was recommended is implemented. It talks in terms of an amendment, but it doesn't talk about the actual, where the sketch was. Like there's no survey sketch, for example, attached with the application. So, I mean, you could argue that it really isn't, not North Perth Council's responsibility to check up on the Land Division Committee, although we certainly will, I mean, as a result of this. And frankly, as I said, in terms of having Councillor Duncan as a county councillor sitting at the Land Division Committee, I thought that maybe we should at least be apprised by someone that was presumably at the table, just to say, just so you know, this was the decision and this is why, perhaps. That's the convenience of having someone on the Land Division Committee that sits around this table. I'm not necessarily in favor of seeing this application be denied by this council. I would suggest that, in fact, just as I said before, that we defer this decision to allow the applicant to have discussions with the Land Division Committee to look at a reduced area, and if they do go with a request by the applicant for the reduced area, and the Land Division Committee approves, then we would look at an amended application to, in fact, deal with exactly what it is that would comply with the provisions, at least in my view, that those sheds would be out in a reduced land area so that it's only the minimum amount of land area that's required for the surplus farmhouse severance. This is not just in the County of Perth official plan policy. This is direct from the provincial policy statement, which specifically reads the minimum amount of land that's required to service the surplus farmhouse. It's a surplus farmhouse severance policy. It is not a surplus farm stead policy in terms of allowing sheds that are clearly of a size that can still be used to accommodate agricultural equipment, for example. That was never the intention of the policy, and for those that don't know, was involved directly with County Council and every single local municipal council on the development of these policies, and it was clear as a bell that it's the minimum amount of land that's required for the surplus farmhouse. So why we continue to have this discussion in terms of the Land Division Committee and certainly in the public is unfortunate. But I do agree that every single one of these applications is different, and we will see that because of the lay of the land. The one we dealt with tonight is significantly further back from Perth Line 86, for example, than this one that we're talking about on Line 84. And again, it's the way things were built. They were never built that they were going to be severed. They were built because this is where the house was, this is where the barn was, this is where the sheds were, this is where the fields are. And there's geographic reasons for that. But our policies are such that it's the minimum amount of land that's required. It's not what I'd like to have, or because the shed is worth $30,000, I think it should go with the house. That's not the point. Anyways, I've said enough. Thank you.
Can I just check with staff? Because I think council has asked previously if there would be discussions with the applicant concerning the voluntary adjustment to the size of the land request here. Can you comment on this?
Yes, I did speak with the applicant and mentioned the situation. They were of the opinion that they wanted to come forward with the application that was approved.
Okay. Any further comments, council? Danette, this has been duly moved and seconded, correct? All right, so we have the resolution before us. If there's no further discussion or debate, I think we should have the vote. Please trigger that. Okay, so it's 7-7-2, that's carried. Let's take a pause here. Does council feel that it needs to do anything further with regards to its concern about the performance of Land Division Committee in its execution of its duties? Councillor Behrens?
Absolutely.
What do you have a shape or a thought about how you'd approach that?
Well, I think Mr. Rothwell said it a whole lot more eloquently than I did. They're simply not following their own policy.
Okay.
And part of the reason, like I said, that it used to be members of the general public, but the lower tier municipalities' concerns were not being heard and not being put in as conditions. So county council decided that land division would now be made up of members of county council. So the scenario is that we have members of county council that aren't following their own policy or following the member municipalities' concerns and requests for additional conditions. So I would suggest that we write both to county council and copy it to the land division. And I would like the clerk to expand on some of the information that she gave us in that letter to say, you know, this shed was included, this shed wasn't included, because Councillor Rothwell is absolute truth in that it is a surplus farmhouse severance. It's unfortunate that this particular application, it was a catch-22 as far as I'm concerned, because the Bachers simply made an application and Land Division approved it. We didn't like it, but that's no reason for them to be caught up in a fight about policy with our own county. So I think we need to have further conversation, but this is unacceptable.
Do you want to propose a resolution to this effect then? I think at one point in your comments it sounded like resolution language, which was, you know, to write the county and copy Land Division expressing this council's concern about the adherence to policies by the Land Division Committee, something like that?
If I might, I would suggest that Councillor Rothwell might have the better verbiage about what should be put in the letter than what I would. I'm not sure if he is willing to assist with this, but I would make that a motion.
His civilian history has some benefit here, perhaps. Councillor Rothwell, you want to weigh in on this one?
If council's willing, if the resolution is passed, I'm certainly willing to work with staff in terms of outlining that in terms of the letter. I don't think it's the intent that we actually have to have the wording of the letter here this evening in the resolution. I hope not, but I'm sure that we can, you know, outline the issues of concern. But if there is an agreement of council, I'm certainly willing to second Councillor Behrens' resolution so it's truly on the floor.
Okay, very good. So Danette, you're looking at your screen. It looks like you might have something there. Do you want to try, Pat? Do you want to read in on this one?
What's written is that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth direct the clerk to send a letter to County Council, a copy to Land Division regarding concerns with the decisions of Perth County Land Division Committee regarding surplus farmhouse dwelling severances.
Okay. So moved by Councillor Behrens then. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Clerk.
Can I ask Council as to be clear as to who will be signing this letter? Thank you. Yeah, we'll put, yeah, just make sure.
Implied that, Pat, you would work with Councillor Rothwell on
Absolutely.
getting the issues properly verbiaged?
No. I just want to be clear
Okay.
on process. That's all.
Got it? You ready? Okay. Any further discussion or debate before we trigger the vote? Well, it's triggered. Let's go. Let's go. And that is carried. Thank you. Well, that brings up item 8.2. Council is asked to enact a bylaw to amend the rates and fees bylaw, closing the loop on matters discussed earlier in this meeting. I have a resolution for consideration that reads as follows: that bylaw number 140-2019 being a bylaw to amend the rates and fees bylaw number 160-2015 be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I invite a mover for that? Deputy Mayor Kellum, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Anstead. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this further to our earlier discussions? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 9 on tonight's agenda. Are there any notices of motion from councillors attending this evening? Seeing no indication of that, let's jump over to item 10 on our agenda for item 10.1. Are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? Councillor Johnston.
Just today I was made aware of a rash of middle of the night break-ins at farms and vehicles and stuff in rural Elma Township. So hopefully we got lots of viewers out there tonight, but it's been caught on camera. The police have been notified about it as well, but there's been a rash of truck break-ins, barn break-ins and stuff like that. People 3 o'clock in the morning getting into vehicles and stuff like that. And I was made aware it was in Elma Township, so I just want everybody to be aware. Lock everything you can by the look of it.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Councillor Barons?
I just wanted to mention that CAO Snell has a computer stick, a USB stick. If you haven't managed to download your budget information, it's all available on a stick for you. It's easier to copy to your computer.
Thank you. Anything further on item 10.1? Okay, that brings us to agenda item 11. We have one matter before us to be considered in a closed session of council. I will now read the resolution that both explains and enables our action to enter into closed session. That this committee proceed in camera at 8:37 p.m. to address a matter pertaining to or regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, regarding human resources. Can I invite a mover for this? Councillor Andreessen, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Seiler, thank you. Any discussion or debate? Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That means at this point we'll invite those who do not need to be here, who've not been invited to be here, to exit the council chamber. Council, why don't we take a 7-minute break? We'll come back at 8:45 for our next item. And at this point, we'll turn off the microphones and change the camera, the feed, so that we're showing the screen, the appropriate screen for closed session.